The first one is very basic. I feel the world has gone wrong. What to do?
Whoa. Yes, well, I think we've been aware, you and I and everybody, that the world has been wrong for a very long time. So it's not like it's gone wrong now. The feeling that humanity, like Kai might put it, took a wrong turn, has been there with all civilizations. If you look at it, the Christian, Judeo-Christian, the Hindu, and everybody else have a myth whereby something happened at one time and things went in the wrong direction. So we've had that with us for a while now, several thousand years at least, that we had gone wrong. But now perhaps the danger is increased because our power has increased. So the urgency to change is higher because so much more is at stake. Before they could kill each other and go on, survive, and the world continued. But now that possibility, we are closer to destroying the whole thing. So it's something, our wrong turning is really becoming a danger to life itself. So that is much bigger, if you like. The seed may be the same, but the problem is much bigger.
Okay, just go on.
Yeah, did we miss a part of...
Yeah, we missed a little part. Yeah.
Okay. How do we start to rewind?
Yeah, can you remind just...
Rewind.
Have...
Well, here, why would one study Krishnamurti or listen to Krishnamurti? Obviously, one thinks that would be helpful in some regards. So we do have the feeling of helpfulness in terms of the so-called mirror. Is a mirror helpful? Now, take Krishnamurti's metaphor. I'm changing a little bit what I was saying. Let's take Krishnamurti as his word, saying that he's a mirror. So, but he's reflecting, supposedly a true mirror. Now that is reflecting, it's not distorted, it's not one of these concave mirrors where you see your face all over the place. So, a mirror, true mirror, reflecting the reality. Is that helpful? It can be, if one is able to see. That is just the problem. He can lay out, present, he doesn't just show our exterior, shows our interior, shows how we are built up, what kind of structures consciousness has developed, and how humanity has been trapped in this dimension, in this bubble of consciousness. Now, to be able to see that is a tremendous thing, but he cannot make anyone see. You can take the horse to water, but you cannot make him drink. And that's the interesting part. Still, the mirror may be helpful because it does reflect. And maybe we need mirrors to see. That's the question I have. That somehow, if somebody at certain points didn't put in the right word in our lives, didn't put the right question, we might not have woken up to the implications of that situation or state. So I find that helpful. It doesn't have to be Krishnamurti in that regard. Anyone who is attentive, who's aware, can just say, put a word or even a gesture, or not even a gesture, just their presence can be enough to awaken that sensitivity, to make us aware, or help, aid in the awareness of the issue so that we can perceive and be free. So yes, I'd say yes, but at the end of the day, of course, one cannot depend. That's the thing. One is still having to face the actuality, because a great deal of the problem, as he puts it also, is that we depend on others to give us answers to our problems. But the answer from outside will not be an answer from within, unless I see through that answer what the actuality is, not as an intellectual construct that I project upon it, but that actually there's a perception and insight into it. Only insight transforms, and insight is not derived from someone. It is an act of intelligence that happens at that particular moment. But the exposure that the mirror does, I mean, how naked is one before the teachings? Is totally naked, right?
Right.
Well, one may not want to see one's ugliness, all right, but how are you going to cover it up or expose? So it's a question as to how honest one also wants to be. Right? So in that way, I think Krishnamurti also has this compassionate feeling for it. So he doesn't come with condemnation, traditional moralities, blah, blah, blah. So all that is also helpful. It helps to remove all those burdens of judgment, so that one is also already, to a certain extent, free to look, because judgment is not the way to look.
Yeah. I just remember that a story about I think it was a woman coming to an interview, like in the commentaries on living, and went into the room and just sat with him, and she started to cry, because in a way she was, she said something like, he could look through me, and I saw myself as I was, and I don't think they have any conversations. And then she left, and I think with a kind of relief or something.
But look at that, right? You see yourself seen through, and therefore you see. Interesting that someone can see through you. Somehow that allowed her also to see, and that was enough.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I like this magic.
I see conflict and war all around me, and also in myself there is sometimes conflict. According to Krishnamurti, there is a total ending to conflict. Can you explain?
No.
That's the short answer.
The short answer. Because this is the thing with K, right? Of total. The total. That's where I don't quite get yet. I understand the whole significance of conflict. Why he starts from there, for example, right? That is that is the basic sign, symptom, in fact, evidence of what the first question was about, that something went wrong with us. Is this continuity of conflict. It's like the disease, the symptom of the disease, right? And that therefore ending conflict is equivalent to restoring health and wholeness to life, to our lives, right? So this I am very clear about. That's what he means. But also I'm very clear about what you just said. The awareness of conflict in one's life as well as in the world. And how that endures. And the causes. Like even this morning we had this video and he was going through the causes of disorder. But it's the causes of conflict, right? Because in the end he ends up in the question of violence. So he has a number of causes. If we understand the causes, that can end, right? Free from the causes. If I am selfish, then I know I have a very central cause in terms of conflict with someone else. So it's a deep journey, because though he starts sort of externally, like with authority, right? Tradition, sometimes he mentioned, then he's moving very quickly inwardly to these opposites, to thought, to anything that fragments. So it's a journey of increasing subtlety in seeing the factors of fragmentation, from the most external, between one person and another, or an institution and another, to the inner factors of one thought versus another, and in fact to the very nature of thought itself. Now I don't have that insight, right? So I can explain to this degree that he explains and that I understand his explanation, but not to the degree of saying, yes, I'm totally free from conflict. Tomorrow I will not have a single aggressive thought towards the people who hate me. I'm afraid that I cannot promise, you see, that freedom is not yet a reality for me. But at least I know this much. Since we were children, probably the same for you, we were very aware of the destructive factor that conflict is. The violence we experience and the violence that we ourselves perpetrated. So that is indeed a permanent, for me, a constant reminder of the total responsibility that pertains to me as a human being. Do I somehow continue in that vein, ignore it, or just let it happen? Or do I pay attention? The question of awareness, for example, in the English language, comes from beware. And you beware of danger. And what is more dangerous than violence? Than conflict? That's the very sign of danger. So the awareness has to be brought to bear there. Automatically, the perception of danger is the meaning of awareness. So that's where I am at, as far as as being a human being. How intense is that awareness, therefore, such that you can catch it? You can catch the factor of your aggression, your fear, your violence at any particular moment. Right? That reveals deeper factors of identification, of possessiveness, of pride, self-image, resentment. There are all kinds of different movements there. It's a living thing. Krishnamurti, though it might be mechanical in essence, is still moving and very fast and changing. So to keep track of all that, right? What are the factors? Where does it come from? And how do I hold on to them? How am I the source? The source is in me. Right? Mm-hmm. So the awareness and the importance of that, of the danger, the awareness of the danger is already the beginning of the ending of that potential ending of conflict, because it brings attention to bear on its sources, right? The causes, and therefore the potential ending of those causes and the ending of conflict. I haven't explained anything. Only the factors and the sense of the urgency and the natural awareness that danger naturally awakens. And are we sustaining it? Are we able to really be alert to that arising of conflict? Because it's destructive, it's sorrow, it hurts, wounds, traumatizes, and destroys our lives. And we destroy each other. Yeah. Can it end completely? Don't know.
But I think in a way we between us, we have already brought conflict home to ourselves. Mm. We say the conflict essentially is in me. Mm. But I think usually, people, the conflict is, there's something outside me causing the conflict. So we don't see quite that our own responsibility. If that there is a kind of there is something in me, a kind of conclusion or assertion or something, which is the ground for conflict coming in between me and another.
Are you saying that even that much of an understanding is not generally shared? Something like that?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Well, maybe that would be a first step also, right?
Yeah.
To become aware of the fact of how central the me, is in every single conflict, right?
Yeah.
Whether it is collectively organized or not. It's still a construct of thought. See, this is the deeper element. You see how difficult it is, therefore. I think that's part of the difficulty, as far as I see, of ending conflict, is the subtlety of the factors. Any identity I invest my being and value there. I call myself something. And in that act of calling myself something, that becomes my value in my life, and something that draws a boundary around itself. And that boundary is the division. And that is in opposition to others. I define myself almost invariably in opposition to someone else in terms of an identity. That is conflict already. So to even begin to question an identity is a tremendous thing to do. I will have to question my identity, my values. This is a hard lesson, actually, to say, what are you? What do you think you are? Why do you identify with these things? And isn't there a danger? See, again, the danger. Isn't that a dangerous thing to do? Because you create the boundary. You have to defend this territory. Every identity has its own territory, abstract or concrete. Right? I'm a Catholic.
Yeah.
You're a Protestant, etc. I happen not to be much identified with any of that, but I can see that happening. Right? Maybe there are identifications that I haven't even detected yet, where my anger may come from. Right? My honor, my name, my name. The name, just think about it. How important the name is and what's attached to the name. And somebody comes along and throws some dirt on your name. So you try to get them out of your sight or whatever it is, right? Or clean the dirt to begin
But
with.
sometimes I think that in every identity, it's kind of built in that it, in some strange way, is superior to other.
Inbuilt in, almost in identity.
It's almost
right?
inbuilt. You know, even if I feel very, low in society and something, then the thought is coming that is the most natural state to be, to be kind of no money, no much knowledge, everything, because from the start, even the world has gone wrong. So in a way, something strange is, I think it's building the identity kind of cover things and protect itself in a very strange way.
Well, identity maybe partly has also the intent of security. The group, the land, and therefore the question of power maybe is implicit in it, because that's what you seem to be indicating, right? Because there's always a superior and an inferior the moment identity comes into the picture, right? And that divides, obviously, but somehow the moment identity is there, the separation comes in, the different definitions, and those enter into contact with one another. Because there is conflict, there has to be power. The issue of conflict is not solved peacefully, it's solved by power. So somehow, I don't know, but the hint is this, that identity implies power. Because there has to be the superior and the inferior. There's a domination issue. Implies domination. And that's interesting. Because everybody wants peace, they say. But at the same time, we want security. And we seek it in this way. And because in that search for security through particular identifications, conflict is inevitable, then power becomes the only way to ensure that that security is guaranteed. So all the countries in the world build their securities on the army, on violence. Institutional violence becomes inherent to this identity and security of each collective group. And maybe we will look at ourselves, and we are each a separate country, every one of us. That is a phenomenon, isn't it? Which contradicts itself. The army cannot guarantee security because they're all fighting each other anyway. It's just the acceptance of violence as a way of life. And in fact, it's built on insecurity, otherwise you wouldn't have an army.
Right.
That's my feeling anyway.
Yeah.
If everybody said we are insecure, let's be friends, that would be something else, right? So see, we don't see the contradiction. Look at that. The ending of conflict we're talking about would mean to see through the contradictions that we establish for ourselves in terms of security and the acceptance of violence as a means to guarantee it. And the pursuit of power as the natural outcome of that pyramidal structure of superior and inferior.
Yes, I think this one. If you should point out one thing which can or will change our lives, what is that?
Insight. But that's like appealing to the gods, though. So I have to be careful. this I'm going to call it miraculous, but it's not really. But whenever any change has happened in our lives, what has brought it about? I'm really talking about that. There was an insight. There was an instant perception of a fact or a non-fact. Okay? And that changed. That's a change. The change comes through insight. I mean, sometimes you can make changes by logic. You just reason with yourself. Like I didn't smoke as an adolescent, where everybody had to smoke because it was a rite of passage to poison your lungs. But I just thought it through. So thinking, that's why I don't dismiss thinking as a possible instrument of reason. So I value reason to that extent, because I feel reason can go a long way. It won't go probably all the way, but it can go somewhere. I just reasoned, what is smoking? First, your body rejects it. So your body has already told you this is poison. So you would never put your head in a chimney and breathe while the fire is on. So this is what you're doing. So just a metaphor served, you see. So we had stolen a packet of cigarettes. I stolen a packet of cigarettes from my brother to experiment. So I got my friends in the village and said, look, this is a waste of money and a waste of time, destroys our health, and is anyway meant to go up in smoke. So we will let it go up in smoke. We built a little fire in the middle of the road and threw every single cigarette into it and the bucket. And none of us smoked. So there is reason. That's as far as reason can go. In certain instances, you can just work it out and rationally conclude. And none of us had the temptation, and the body was there anyway with its own intelligence to tell us that it was a pretty stupid thing to do. So we never did it. But then there are other things psychologically that you get into. You get into patterns of reaction, of habit, contradictions with yourself. You mean to be peaceful, but you are angry automatically in certain situations. And your reason won't work. It just doesn't reach touch the source of the action. It's in the reflex. It's a habit. It's unconscious, if you like. So reason doesn't work. It tries to figure out methods, ways to do it, and it doesn't touch it. So you need insight in the sense of a perception of the actual content of that thought that is now operating in a habitual way. That is not a mechanical thing. That can't be calculated as far as I know, right? So what Kay is appealing to is insight. Can we somehow, is there something we can do, though, to bring about insight? And apparently, the basics for that is to keep paying attention. Be concerned with the thing. Not separate ourselves, escape from the fact. Obviously, I mean, that sounds so mystical when he says it, but in a way, when you look at it logically, rationally, is the only possible answer. That if we move away from it, we will never solve it, because we're already avoiding looking at the issue. So we have to look at the issue. If I am violent, I have to look at violence. I have to look at my aggression. Where is it coming from? And is there an insight then? Maybe into the particular. He pushes it further. So fear. Is there an insight into fear, into my aggression, into my whatever it should happen to be? So insight, and when it happens, insight is an extraordinary thing. And I would agree with Kay that it's not a product of thought. It's not, the reason is the product of thought. Sane thought, rational thought. But there is something else here. I tend to think insight is the action of intelligence. It's not yours. That you don't see it coming from you. You don't sense a you behind it. But it's effective. It's the most effective laser beam you can find. Fop. It hits the thing and it's over. It's over. See, as a kid, I used to steal money from my family to buy little nice colorful things. I was fascinated by colorful things and erasers and especially marbles. I liked marbles. Glass and this and that. So I stole money to buy the marbles, right? And of course, they caught me and they gave me a thrashing. But I continued stealing much more cleverly because I was a smart kid. So I was going to go for my ends. But one time, we're playing with a friend of mine, and I was playing with my favorite marble. There's a favorite marble. I was playing with a favorite marble, and my friend got so angry that he had lost at the game, the marble game that we had, that he picked up my favorite marble and threw it away. So, total panic. I ran after it because he was going to get lost in the bushes, and I might not find it back. So, luckily, the marble bounced off a stone, and I was able to catch it in the palm of my hand.
No.
And then, for whatever reason, I saw it had no value. My brilliant career as a thief was over. Inside, what made that happen? Mm-hmm. My favorite, I had stolen. It was so valuable, and it had no value. Look at that. Apply to the world.
Yeah.
What has value in all that we're doing? Maybe we're doing the same thing like this little kid. We're stealing to buy things that have no value. That to me is a great metaphor.
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay, this one. Krishnamurti says that society is basically the relationship between you and me. I think it's a good starting point to look at society. Can you elaborate?
Well, I think you're right. It's a good place to look at. Because this was one of my struggles, actually, and many people have this struggle between me and society. So I remember sitting with myself. I used to feel sort of impotent in the face of society. Society has its structure, has its impositions, and you are just a pawn in the chess game of society. You have to find your own place where you more or less can survive and do your function, but otherwise society just moves you in whatever place you need to be. You're just a kind of, a cog in the machine, which of course was a challenge to freedom and a challenge also to creativity. So, but is there that division? That is a question. Otherwise, I'm all constantly in struggle with others. Now, you begin to realize, or I begin to realize, that whatever society is, whatever others are, I am also. My father's anger is my anger, and the lust of others is my lust, and all that. So, you can see that the society is built upon the common values that we accept of possession, of dominance, those who have, those who don't, those who know, those who don't, the haves and have-nots, and nowadays it's a very simple thing of the winners and the losers. Right? The human being gets lost in the maze of those structures, of those labels. And then you have the ladder, right? And because we're instinctual animals, we want to fit in the ladder because we want pleasure, security, and some kind of proper place in the ranking of the hierarchy. Because this is the monkey conditioning. It's a conditioning. The moment I come upon this conditioning, which is common, then I know that we're all in the same boat. And the structure of society is just the outcome of that, which is also in me. So that is very interesting because also, curiously enough, one, the division between me and society is dissolved. And two, I'm no longer impotent in relation to the movement of society because I maybe can do something about those very factors. Huh?
Yeah.
So you sort of, it's empowering to that degree. That's the word that most people use. It's empowering. And that's part of one's freedom, right? Not to feel that you are the victim of your circumstances. You are at the center of it. You are it. And either that continues or changes, right? So for me, that's a great truth. But now watch it though, because we have to bring it to relationship. And what is relationship? That's where it's all exposed. all our dirty laundry is there, right? You can't hide. We're exposed, right? What does it show, right? Relationship. Why is relationship so difficult? Because imagine, we can organize society, right? And as a Nordic, you know, is better than anybody else. The models of the Nordic states, you can organize a perfect society with equality, security. My God, we've been struggling for it for years. Freedom and all kinds of stuff, right? But inwardly, in the intimate relationships, it's still a chaos. So look at it, how the difference went. We got order outwardly, but not inwardly. And Kay always warned, right? Saying, hey, careful, the inward always overcomes the outer. You can have good laws, but if you're a thief, you go bypass it. If you're still concerned with yourself, your greed, your ambition will destroy the system in some regard. And certainly intimate relationships will break down, as they do systematically. They also fall into the same pattern of possession, hierarchy, dominance, and all that. So, whoa, there is where the real work lies, in my opinion. Because right relationship, good relationship is health. I take case, the other day my daughter was coming to me and said, I just heard in a song that life is relationship. She heard it in a song.
Yeah,
I said,
pop song.
Pop song.
Yeah.
But she said, I think that's true.
Oh.
And I said, well, some of us have been philosophizing about it. It's true. Just that simple truth that life is relationship again. And when we look at what relationship is, we see that that's not really life. So to restore life to its integrity means to pay tremendous attention to what we are in relationship. Because a relationship exposes, again, my anger, my ambition, my greed, my fear, my self-pity, my aggression. The whole thing comes out. And can we together, you and I, that's it, help each other? I mean, that would be very difficult because you are the same. You're going to do the same. See how difficult the task is? Where do we have to go? Therefore, how low do you have to go? Or how clear, how open, vulnerable, non-assertive you may have to be when faced with your own conditioning. And that you have the kindness and the clarity and the compassion to bear with me when I'm going through this turmoil. And when I fall, you give me another chance to get up on my feet. Because we're brothers, right? And you do that for your brother any day. So I feel the compassion that is required is enormous. Right? Or maybe not, maybe small, but it's encompassing, that maybe is the word, to bear with each other in this journey of self-knowledge and the freedom that's required, because relationship exposes us, and life is relationship, and life demands by itself that we be free. Huh? And that freedom, as Kay said, is love. So I see that there's something very powerfully strong, and I don't know, even a source of passion, if you like, for life itself. And of course, it puts me in the center of it, and I don't always live up to that. It's not a question of live up to that, of living through with the full intent of seeing, right, to the end of that division that is destroying us. So, yes, the answer is we are society, but we are also this movement of separateness, which is exposed in relationship. Relationship is life, and life demands that I be very aware so that I don't contribute to the destructive movement of consciousness as we know it. That's my responsibility. And all right, you have to help each other to respond.
Yeah, I just remember that, I think he said at one point that patience is without limit or without time.
Without time, yeah.
Yeah.
Patience, there you are, patience without time.
Yeah. And I found this, it's quite
I'm not
good
impatient.
because, I work in a field with disabled children, and you know, on a daily basis, we kind of have a culture of patience with them, but there is always a limit. You know,
limitless patience.
yeah,
This would be what is called for, huh?
yeah.
Huh.
Okay, I think maybe we are. Are we having the last one?
Okay,
I
yes,
think so.
yes, because it's
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Okay. Yes. What place, in your opinion, has Krishnamurti's teachings in the history of man?
Ah. In history. Yeah. Well, we don't know yet because history has to tell. History is the one that tells whatever anything has its place or not a place, right? It's an interesting thing. Time will tell. But my opinion, you asked my opinion. So I give my opinion for whatever it's worth. As you can see in the history of so far as we have it, there have been these occasional awakenings, like 6th century BC, around. You got Taoism and Buddhism emerging. And in Greece, there was the great explosion of classical Greece a little later, but around the same time. So there is the field of consciousness itself and of mankind has these suddenly awakenings here and there. And this happened then. Then around 2,000 years ago, there was a little one there. And pretty much for the next 2,000 years, not much has happened of this dimension. I think it's a question of dimension. I think the profundity, the totality of what Krishnamurti has discovered is, I wouldn't say unique, but of such dimension that very few or any such phenomenon has been before. Maybe Buddha. But it's, to me, but that's my impression, of course, and it's a bit subjective, and maybe just this little mouse is in awe of this giant. But the sense of total comprehension of the human condition in a timeless way. Because what is being perceived is that consciousness has got stuck as a whole in his own time-bound little bubble. And that is standing still for the last 50,000 years. Before, we don't know. It's just a number. Homo sapiens has been around for what? 75,000, 100,000? So whatever they're happening. So he's saying this is the structure. Freedom from understanding it, having any insight into total structure, will liberate humanity from its endemic condition of violence and sorrow. I think this is a tremendous thing. So if I were to be a historian, I would put him on the pinnacle of history in our time. To me, and this is me, again, the little me, to me, Kay is the voice of wisdom in our time, the channel of wisdom in our time. And that surely, if they don't put him in history, the historians are not aware of the truth when it's spoken. Right? They're just looking to the past and with the war here and the war there. And suddenly there was someone there who said the truth and it's ignored. That also wouldn't be a surprise. Right? It's happened before. Right? When men of truth or women of truth, people of truth have come along, they tended to be either worshipped, destroyed, or ignored. Right? So this could happen again, whereby the establishment, there is a momentum to history. There's a momentum to human activity, which is already dictated by the structure of consciousness. See? And that consciousness would tend to ignore the deeper truth about itself, because it threatens to undermine its own movement. Huh? So the historian might not want to record it, or might want to ignore it, or might want to put a footnote. In the 60s and 70s there were these little movement of freedom and all that kind of stuff. And then out of that arose these gurus, and the chief guru of gurus was this guru. Okay. So And they could dismiss it easily, the mystical side that has nothing to do with the reality of making it in the world and realpolitik and the rest of it. The monkey business is what the substance of history. What does history record? Conflict. Comes somebody who says there is an end to conflict, you might not want to hear it because that's the end of history. So, I myself, because we're talking also about culture and a regeneration of culture, and I do think that here is the potential for a regeneration, if regeneration is the word, for the generation of a new culture, which we need. So I feel that that could change history, not now, but as the seed that could bring about a completely different humanity, completely different society, and therefore change history itself, which is what I hope.